Greetings, I'm John Werkmeister, and welcome to the virtual open house. The class is American History 2, American History from 1850 to 1933, part of that process of forming a more perfect union. Well, there's no time like the present to find your future in the past. That's an aphorism or a phrase that I kind of put together to kind of deal with our National History Day program. But I think it's very apt for what we're doing in our study of American history. I wanted to consider some things that we've been seeing within the last year. America's popular understanding of the Civil War is part of our modern debate, talking about statues being pulled down, etc. The way we frame the past reflects what we value in the present and also reflects our thoughts of the future. And we're seeing that happen right now. So we'll go back and look at that period of history that is part of the current debate. History isn't simply written and done, it's reevaluated, re-engaged, and of course it provides new lessons for new generations. We're also involved in a tragic pandemic, which of course had a tragic predecessor in the 1918 Spanish flu. Put Spanish in parentheses because it really wasn't a Spanish flu, but Spain had no wartime restrictions on freedom of speech because it wasn't involved in World War I. In other countries, they were restricting the freedom of speech, so the flu was first reported in Spain, but it probably began in the United States. And then we're going to look at the pandemic has generated an economic crisis, which of course has really challenged a lot of families today and asked for a government response, sort of like what we see, what we'll cover in the end of this unit of our year, the Depression and the New Deal. So in this class, we're going to explore the history of America from the eve of the Great Civil War in the 1850s to the Great Depression in the 1930s. So not only are we looking at content, we will continue to engage students' ability to think critically. The social studies provide a great environment for students to develop these important critical thinking skills. Students will be doing lots of writing in class, sometimes writing to get better at writing, sometimes writing to force students to engage critically in content, to make analysis, to make comparisons, to look critically at information, and to drive original conclusions based on one or several sources. So in many ways, we're going to continue to learn to write, but we will also write to learn. We also could expect to be engaging different kinds of texts. We're not just looking at the traditional textbooks. We'll be looking at primary source materials, reference materials. The students have a lot they can engage with, but of course not all sources are created equal. So we'll look at evaluating sources and seeing how we could draw historical conclusions from them. Most all the reading will be available digitally, as I'm trying to limit the exchange of paper materials during the time of pandemic. This really kind of leads us to the third point here. It's very important that your student comes with a charged iPad to school every day. That iPad has never been more important for a student's instruction because it's going to be the vehicle by which the students will engage content. They could even do intellectual exchanges using Google Docs, but they will need to have that technology there. Paper and pencil is always available, but it's certainly not the preferred method of working with material during the time of a pandemic. As has been the case in my class for a long time, 3 simple rules. But they mean something different given the circumstances of 2020. First off, I need students to be present. But this will have an entirely new meaning this year. By being present, I mean being present with the content and challenges that we present. And this might happen in the comfort of their own home. This might happen in a classroom. But the idea of communicating between parents, teachers, and students is very important, so we could encourage students to be present. Second is to be responsible, which of course is that ongoing struggle we have with young people and preparing them for adult life. That's certainly going to be very important this year, as there'll be times where students won't be under the teacher's nose when they're doing their work. Of course, this is an important skill, but it's never been more important to accelerate that than this year. Our third issue is to be curious. And of course, this is something that has been always a very important struggle, but if we win this struggle, students will learn more about history in the decades that follow high school, meaning that I have a year to teach them something about American history, but they have the rest of their life to use it and to engage it. I want them to know how to engage it. I want them to choose to engage it. And that's one of our key goals here. If we could get these students to see curiosity and understand that any study of history isn't final, it's an ongoing process. We'll be presenting material via the Google Classroom. That's our online platform. All academic classes will post material on Google Classroom. Students will register for this class on their first day back to school, and I'll post lectures, readings, I'll link resources via the Google Classroom. I'll demonstrate that in a minute, giving you a view of what my Google Classroom might look like. All work will be completed on Google Classroom. Again, I'm trying to limit the engagement and exchange of papers from home into school. And we will accommodate an in-class limited, this will accommodate if we're in class, a limited hybrid schedule, or in distance learning. So that will create a consistency in a year that's bound to have interruptions and inconsistency. I invite all parents to join our classroom via email. Be sure your email is updated. This would be important for all of your teachers. So if you don't have updated email, please call the office and do that. And I'm going to show you right now what my Google Classroom looks like. This is my world history Google Classroom from last year. So what I do is I generally will use the same framework. What I'll do is I post daily. And I'll post any links, like for example, if I want to meet on a video conference, this is a link for Google, a virtual meeting. I'll post YouTube videos and material. I might post it directly there. And on my daily post, I'll talk about what we're looking for, what our main ideas are going to be, what we hope to accomplish, and what's due. But if this was an active Google Classroom, up here, upcoming assignments would be posted right here. See where it says upcoming? Any work that's due will be posted under upcoming, and classwork is also available under the tab of classwork. So for example, I have a link for a quiz because I'll use test mods for my quizzing base so that students will have the information there. Material is listed right there. So for example, on here, this was a document-based question activity. The students would open it, and it gives you some directions of what the activity is, how they need to do it. And they open the document up, and they'll have all the information they need there, and it will give them all the idea. If there are any links, like if a YouTube video is involved, the link would be posted within the document, but it could also be posted separately too. Typically, I don't mind being redundant. If the student misses it in one place, they'll see it somewhere else. But everything they need will be available there on the Google Classroom. So I really think that that students need to feel comfortable with Google Classroom. And again, I'll invite you to join it. And the invitation will allow me to, with email, to get in touch with you if I find there's any reason to communicate with you about the progress your student is making. Yeah, we have some challenges here, but with the technology tools, if we're all attending to them, might make us work a little bit more closely together, which of course is going to be in the benefit of our young people in our classroom. Now, we know we have a promise of a non-traditional school year ahead. Communication between us as teachers, between you as parents and students is going to be more important than ever as we navigate them. I would advise you to use PowerSchool and make sure, again, if you don't have access to PowerSchool, call the office, make sure that you do. It's a good place for you to check your teen's progress and, of course, to raise academic goals. So you can discuss the goals that your student has, that your child has, your teen has, and could raise those goals accordingly. Now, please, again, make sure email is up to date. It will be the primary way that I'll communicate with you. And please make sure that you monitor your email, too, if you want to get updates. It's probably the most convenient way since we're not going to be using text messages here. My email is right there at jwerkmeister@penncrest.org. If you have any questions, please include the name of your teen with any correspondence. Don't hesitate to share concerns or questions, and I will get back to you. I appreciate it very much. We'll get through this year. We'll make it the best that we can make it. And with all of us on the same page, I'm very hopeful that we could have a very useful, valuable, memorable, and meaningful 2020-2021 school year. Thank you very much.